Have you ever felt exhausted from being ruled by negative emotions? Have you ever wondered why you keep procrastinating, losing control, and then blaming yourself? We live in a world of constant flux, where anything can be taken away. Money, reputation, even our closest relationships. But there is one thing no one can ever touch: our response. And that is the birthplace of Stoicism. Not a philosophy for dreamers, but for those who choose to live with strength, clarity, and resilience in the face of adversity. In this video, we'll uncover 10 Stoic habits to practice in 2025. Not to become perfect, but to become yourself, only stronger. 1. Stop letting anxiety rule you. We've all felt anxiety, that quiet force slipping into the mind, making the heart race, breath falter, and thoughts tangle. Maybe it's tomorrow's workload, a hard conversation ahead, or just that vague sense that something's not right. And before we know it, instead of living in the present, our minds spiral into worst-case scenarios that haven't even happened. We imagine every possible downfall, rejection, failure, losing control, and in doing so, we lock ourselves in a prison called anxiety. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "Today I rid myself of fear, for it exists only within me." Simple words, yet they carry a profound truth. Anxiety doesn't come from the world. It comes from how we perceive it. It is not our circumstances, but our interpretation of them that stirs our worry. Once we grasp this, we understand peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from mastering our response. Stoic practice doesn't mean denying emotions or becoming numb. On the contrary, it is the art of facing anxiety head-on, naming it, and asking it the right questions. When you feel uneasy, pause, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, is this fear real, or just something I've imagined? More often than not, we're not anxious about what's happening now, but about what might happen. We stress over an email left unanswered, a phrase not replied to, a glance we can't decode. But when we return to the present, the only place we truly exist, most of those fears dissolve like morning mist. A classic Stoic technique is premeditatio malorum, envisioning the worst that could happen, not to feed fear, but to strip it of its power. When you dare to look directly at the worst-case scenario, you often find it's not as terrifying as you believed. Say you fear being rejected in an interview. Picture it, then ask, so what? What can I do next? Do I still have other paths? This kind of reflective questioning transforms anxiety into directed action. Also remember, the body and mind are deeply connected. When you're anxious, your breath shortens, your muscles tighten, and that physical state feeds the mental storm. So come back to your breath. Take a few minutes each day just to sit still, to feel your inhale and exhale. It sounds simple, but in doing so you are reminding yourself, you are here, you are alive, you still have agency. On the Stoic path, overcoming anxiety isn't a sudden victory. It's a discipline, shaped day by day. But the beauty is this: every time you choose reason over panic, presence over projection, you grow stronger. You don't need to eliminate anxiety entirely. You just need to stop letting it run your life. And if you're hearing this while feeling unsettled, know this: you are not alone. We're all learning to navigate emotion, confront fear, and reclaim our inner steadiness. Don't aim to be someone who never worries. Be the one who stands firm, even when anxiety comes knocking. 2. Command yourself to stop. There is a power most of us possess, yet few truly exercise. The ability to give ourselves a command. Not the kind that says, you must do this or that, but one that stems from self-mastery, from a conscious realization, I can stop right now, not because I have to, but because I choose to. In an age where temptations lie around every corner, a buzzing phone, a glowing notification, or small addictive habits like coffee, social media, or procrastination, the ability to say stop is one of the clearest signs of inner strength. Epictetus once said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." And that is where all lasting change begins. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. True freedom is the ability to pause when you are tempted to indulge, to choose differently when every part of you wants to give in, when you've been scrolling endlessly and finally think, "Enough, I'm done," and actually put the phone down. That's not just an action. It's a declaration that you are no longer a slave to your unconscious impulses. Many believe willpower is something grand, rare, and reserved for ideal conditions, but in truth, it lives in the smallest of moments. When you're about to start the next episode past midnight, and instead say, "No, I need rest," or when you're ready to snap at someone from stress, but catch yourself, breathe, and choose silence. Each of these moments is proof you are the one at the wheel, not your reflexes, not your moods, not your habits. One vivid example is the story of President Eisenhower, who smoked for 40 years. One day, he looked at a cigarette in his hand and said, "Enough, I'm done," and he quit. Just like that. No ceremony, no gradual tapering, no drama. That decision wasn't just about quitting smoking. It was a symbol of sovereignty, the courage to confront what controls you, and to end it on your own terms. No waiting for tomorrow. No perfect moment. No excuses. Just one firm command. Stop. In Stoicism, commanding yourself to stop is not about repression or self-punishment. It is the art of inner leadership. One cannot lead others if one cannot first lead oneself. And that begins with recognizing the patterns that weaken us, then acting to break the cycle. The truth is, most of what hurts us doesn't come from the outside world, but from the destructive routines we repeat daily. These habits aren't born from one major decision, but from thousands of small ones no one sees, and only you have the power to end them. If you're waiting for the right moment to change, there isn't one. There will always be something urgent, some excuse to delay, some feeling of unreadiness. But Stoicism doesn't wait for the perfect mood. It begins the moment you act against your own sufans. No applause, no announcement, no audience, just one quiet act of defiance, stopping a habit, a behavior, a reflex that pulls you away from the person you aim to become. And every time you do that, no matter how small, you're rewiring the system that steers your life. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. Just learn to stop, right at the edge, right when you feel yourself slipping. 3. Do one hard thing every day. In a world overflowing with comfort and convenience, the hardest task is not grueling labor. It's the voluntary choice to step outside your comfort zone. Stoicism teaches that no one can build true strength by avoiding discomfort. It is precisely what unsettles, inconveniences, or even frightens us that fosters real growth. Doing one hard thing each day isn't about proving something or flaunting discipline. It's simply a daily reminder to yourself, I am still in control. I have not surrendered. Imagine living like most people, days flowing in the same rhythm, choosing the easy route, dodging what's inconvenient, postponing what matters because you don't feel ready. The more we live this way, the weaker we feel. The more we lose motivation and trust in ourselves. Deep down, we know we're avoiding. Doing one hard thing a day doesn't have to be monumental. It could be waking up 30 minutes earlier, taking a cold shower, making that long overdue apology, walking back into the gym after weeks of excuses, or simply finishing a task you've been putting off for far too long. What matters isn't the size of the challenge, but the will to face it. Seneca, one of the most committed Stoics, used to plunge into freezing rivers every New Year's Day, not for meaningless hardship, but to remind himself, I still possess strength. I am not a servant to comfort. That was a symbol, and we too can craft our own symbols through small but deliberate actions. When you choose difficulty, you are rejecting the lull of ease. You are telling yourself, I don't need perfect conditions to take action. And you are preparing for life's real trials, because they will come. By deliberately confronting hard things, we build mental immunity. Each small challenge is a dose of vaccine that fortifies us against panic when life truly tests us. You won't be the one who breaks down at failure, rejection, or sudden change, because you've learned to live with discomfort and no longer fear it. You once gasped for air walking into a crowded room, but you learned to breathe and step forward, hands trembling. You once dreaded opening an email marked urgent, but you trained yourself to face it head on. And each time, you grew steadier, more self-reliant, and closer to the strongest version of yourself. Doing hard things daily also builds trust in yourself. Each time you overcome a small resistance, you mark a silent tally in your inner ledger. I did it. I kept my word to myself. And that, not praise from others, becomes your most sustainable fuel. A person may fail 100 times, but if they keep walking toward challenge, they will never fall completely, because they know each passing day is a chance to train resilience. And if today you feel weak, exhausted, unwilling to do anything, then today is the perfect day to do one hard thing. It doesn't need to be grand. Just choose something you've been avoiding and begin. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for inspiration. Just act. And then you'll realize the hardest part isn't the action itself, but choosing to begin. Once you start, you reclaim control and you take one steady step toward the person you were always meant to become. 4. Stop fearing change. We often fear change not because it's truly dangerous, but because it makes us feel like we've lost control. In a world where stability is constantly sought, even the smallest disruption can stir up unease. And yet the paradox is this: the world never stops changing. Everything around us is in motion. The weather, technology, people, our emotions, and we ourselves are changing with every moment. The only constant is change itself. And if we continue to resist this inevitability, we will keep living in helplessness. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, once said, "The universe is change. Life is what our thoughts make of it." These words are not only philosophically true, but also deeply practical. Life is not a fixed script where you control every line. It is more like a river. You can resist it and be swept away, or you can learn to swim with it, adapt, and move forward. Change is not the enemy. It is simply a friend we have yet to learn how to hear. In modern psychology, there's a concept called the comfort zone, a place where everything feels familiar, predictable, and easy. But what few people mention is this: the comfort zone isn't actually safe. It's a velvet cage, soft but confining. Inside it, you don't grow. Inside it, you don't explore. Inside it, you gradually lose flexibility. And when change inevitably arrives, you're caught off guard. Stoicism does not encourage us to stay in that cage. On the contrary, it trains us to prepare for change, face it head on, and use it as a tool for growth. One of the most powerful mental exercises practiced by ancient Stoics was contemplating loss. Memento mori, premeditatio malorum, phrases that sound somber, but in truth, help us appreciate life more. When we frequently remind ourselves that anything can change at any moment, we become more grateful for what we have and less shaken when disruption arrives. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we learn to ask, what can I learn from this change? I used to be someone who feared change deeply. Every time I thought about changing careers, leaving a relationship, or trying something new, I was paralyzed by a flood of what ifs. What if I fail? What if I'm judged? What if no one supports me? But one day I realized I was living inside my fear, not in reality, and that was more terrifying than any change I was avoiding. I started with small things, saying no when needed, challenging myself in new environments, learning to listen instead of trying to control, and slowly, I discovered that every change brought me closer to a new part of myself, a part I would have never found had I clung to the old. Change doesn't destroy us. Resistance to it does. Think back to the times you were hurt, lost, or redirected. And remember, you got through it. In fact, you came out stronger. What would happen if, next time change comes knocking, you didn't shut the door? What if, instead, you opened it, looked it in the eye, and said, "Welcome. Let's see what I'm meant to learn from you today." 5. Get back on track. The moment you fall off, none of us is perfect. No one maintains flawless discipline 365 days a year. There will be mornings you oversleep, nights you overeat, days when you accomplish nothing and feel disappointed in yourself. And that is completely normal. But it is precisely in those moments, when you've slipped off track, when you've missed a good habit, when you are drowning in the feeling of "I've messed up," that a defining choice appears. Because now you stand at a crossroads, either give up or come back. And the Stoic always chooses the latter. In Stoicism, a mistake is never the end. A stumble does not define who you are. What defines you is how you respond afterward. Do you forgive yourself and get up, or do you punish yourself with prolonged guilt and let everything go because you think, "I already failed"? The truth is, missing one day is not failure. Only when you stop trying does it become true failure. Most of us don't fall because of one big mistake. We fall because we exaggerate a small one until it becomes our excuse to quit. A person committed to discipline, someone building a better version of themselves, is not someone who never slips. They are the one who recalibrates the moment they realize they've drifted. Like driving. If you take a wrong turn, you don't smash the wheel, toss the keys, or abandon the journey. You simply correct the course and keep going. Likewise, if you miss a workout, eat a bad meal, or forget a day of meditation, you don't need to feel ashamed or spiral. You just need to return. Remember this: habits are not built on perfection. Habits are built on persistence. After every stumble, each time you return, you teach your mind, "I am someone who doesn't quit." That feeling, the feeling of getting back up right after a slip, not only fuels progress, but deepens your trust in yourself. You don't need to wait for Monday, a new month, or the new year to start again. All it takes is one decision. Right now, one thing I've learned from Stoicism is, don't wait for motivation to return. Don't wait until you feel ready, because that feeling may never come. Act first. The emotions will catch up. If you've skipped the gym for 3 days, just put on your workout clothes and go. No overthinking. If you've been eating poorly all week, restart with a simple, nourishing meal. No force, no guilt. Just offer yourself a fresh starting point and let it continue from there. There were many times I felt completely broken just because I missed a few days of training. Guilt consumed me, and I blamed myself until all motivation vanished. But eventually I learned, guilt doesn't move you forward. Forgiveness does. So I chose to get up, not dramatically, not frantically, just quietly return and do the next right thing. And I found that each return made me stronger than before, not because I never fell, but because I refused to stay down. If today you feel like you've fallen off track, then this is your message. You still have time. No one is stopping you from starting over. There's no rule that says you must be perfect. All you need is to be honest with yourself and return. Don't wait for a miracle or some grand burst of inspiration. Just take one small step right now, and you'll be surprised at the power already in your hands. 6. Start with the smallest things. We often believe that to change our lives, we need to do something massive, a grand decision, a personal revolution, a dramatic turning point that transforms everything overnight. But in truth, that's an illusion. The reality is, all lasting change begins with small, consistent actions. It's not a night of sudden inspiration that makes you write a 10-year plan, but the first morning you get out of bed, 15 minutes earlier, to read a page of a book, drink a glass of water, or simply not check your phone the moment you wake up. These are things so small no one notices, yet when repeated long enough, they start to shift everything. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "Well-being is built by small steps, but they are not small in the end." And he was right. When you begin with something small, you generate momentum, like a snowball rolling from the top of a hill. Tiny at first, but gaining mass and strength with each turn. The problem is, we're often too impatient. We want quick results. We want to feel more capable, more disciplined, more intelligent in just a few days. And when that doesn't happen, we quit. But if we look closely, we'll see what creates change is not the breakthrough. It's the repetition. Think of something you've really wanted to change. Staying up too late, procrastinating, poor eating habits, or being easily irritated. Maybe you've created detailed plans, promised yourself, starting tomorrow, I'll be completely different. But what happened? After a few disciplined days, you grew tired, lost motivation, fell back into old habits, and felt disappointed in yourself. That's not because you were weak. It's because you tried to change too much, too fast. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be superhuman. It teaches you to start with what you can control, no matter how small it seems. For example, if you want to become calmer, don't try to meditate for an hour each day. Start with 1 minute of silence, eyes closed, deep breathing. If you want to read more, don't set a goal of 50 books a year. Just read 1 page each night before bed. If you want to be more organized, don't dive into minute-by-minute schedules. Simply write down the 3 most important tasks for tomorrow, then complete them. These small actions may not feel impressive right away, but it's the humility of starting small that builds the endurance for the long run. One of the reasons we fail in personal growth is because we always chase feeling motivated. But motivation comes and goes. Action, no matter how small, is something we can choose every day. And when we act, confidence follows, not the other way around. The Stoic doesn't wait for inspiration. They begin and let inspiration come later. They don't need an audience for their effort. They only need to know, today, I took 1 small step toward who I want to become. I remember a time I tried to transform my life by waking up early, exercising, eating clean, reading, and meditating every day. But within a few days, I was exhausted and fell back into the same old rhythm. It wasn't until I stopped trying to overhaul everything and began with just 1 small act, waking up 10 minutes earlier to sit in silence and drink tea, that I felt something shift. From those 10 minutes, I gradually added 5 minutes of reading, a few stretches, a small notebook to record what I'd learned each day. And before long, I realized I was living differently, not because I forced change, but because I remained faithful to the smallest act. If you're feeling lost, overwhelmed, or burdened by everything you need to improve, pause for a moment. Choose the smallest thing you can do today. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be impressive. It only needs to be consistent, and you'll find that small thing, repeated long enough, becomes the foundation of your life. 7. Design a clear schedule for your life. A life without a schedule is like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly across a vast ocean, vulnerable to any wave or wind. We can wake up each morning only to be swept away by emails, notifications, and messages, as if caught in a current too strong to resist. And by day's end, we feel tired, busy, yet unsure whether we've done anything truly meaningful. It's not because we didn't try, but because we lacked a system, a structure, a clear schedule to bring order to life and calm to the mind. Seneca once said, "A life without design is a wandering life." And that's precisely what Stoicism urges us to recognize each day. If we don't intentionally structure our lives, someone else or circumstance will do it for us. Scheduling isn't about forcing ourselves into a rigid routine. It's about drawing boundaries between what matters and what distracts. It's the act of someone choosing to live deliberately, not just actively responding to every minor disruption. An ideal schedule doesn't need to be detailed down to the minute, but it needs a skeleton, like the steady rhythm of a healthy heartbeat. Not fast, just consistent. You can start with fixed blocks. Mornings for self-care, midday for deep work, afternoons for connection, evenings for restoration and reflection. Most importantly, ensure space for all three dimensions of life: body, and soul. Don't schedule just to work. Schedule to live fully. A good schedule is one that fits you, not copied from someone else. If you're most energized in the morning, use that time for mentally demanding tasks. If you think best at night, use it to read, reflect, or create. Your schedule should be where you understand yourself, not to confine you, but to free you from chaos and randomness. It helps you see what you're moving toward and what's pulling you away from it. Some people say, "I'm not a planner. I like to live free." But the truth is, real freedom doesn't come from having no plan. It comes from owning your time. When you don't know what your day holds, you're likely to spend hours on things that serve no real goal. But with a clear schedule, you know when to work deeply, when to rest completely, and when to truly connect with yourself and others. And then something remarkable happens. The clearer your schedule, the less stress you feel, because your mind no longer has to constantly make impulsive decisions every minute. You no longer ask yourself, "What should I do next?" You simply follow the path you've set, freeing up enormous mental energy. In the discipline of a schedule, you discover a deeper freedom, the freedom to live intentionally, day by day. I used to let my emotions drive my day, working when I felt inspired, resting when I felt tired, pushing through the night when I was in the zone, only to crash later, miss deadlines, and end up disappointed in myself. But ever since I created a consistent morning routine, a focused work block with no distractions, and an evening hour to unplug and return inward, I've found not just better productivity, but deeper meaning in how I live. I feel aligned, directed, and most importantly, I trust myself more each day. If your life feels chaotic, tangled, or out of control, don't rush to find a new app or technique. Start simply by writing down time blocks for the core parts of your life. Don't overdo it. Just be clear, and then see what happens when you give your life a current, instead of letting it drift without direction. 8. Protect your time as a sacred asset. If there is one thing we all possess equally, regardless of status, wealth, background, or age, it is time. Every day, each of us receives exactly 24 hours, no more, no less. But what sets people apart is not how much time they have, but how they choose to use it. A meaningful life is not lived by those with more hours, but by those who guard their time as a sacred asset, refusing to let it leak into the meaningless. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish for ignoring what others chase." And that rings more true than ever today. In an age where distractions come in thousands of forms, an entertaining video, a social media post, a surprise message, or an invitation that seems like just a minute, little chunks of time are sliced away each day. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, until we look back and realize the most precious hours of our lives have vanished without notice. Time is unlike money. Lost money can be earned again. Missed opportunities can be replaced. But time, once gone, cannot be reclaimed by anything in this world. And yet, paradoxically, we budget our money, guard our possessions, but are careless with time, giving it away thoughtlessly, as if we had an endless supply. We accept pointless conversations, needless social obligations, and hours lost to screens simply because we don't want to miss out. But in doing so, we miss the most important thing of all, our own life. The Stoic learns to ask one question before each choice. Is this worthy of my time? And if the answer is no, they are willing to decline, even if it makes them seem odd, different, or misunderstood, because they understand no one can live for us. No one can take responsibility for our time but us. And if we don't protect it, someone else will use it for their goals, not for the life we truly want. To protect your time, start by identifying its thieves. Phones constantly buzzing, apps designed to trap your attention, meaningless conversations, procrastination driven by fear of effort. Once you clearly see these, you'll begin to turn them off, set boundaries, or simply say no. Not out of extremism, not to isolate yourself, but with awareness of what truly deserves your presence. I used to think I was always busy, constantly short on time to do what mattered. But when I started tracking how I spent each day, I uncovered something alarming. So many empty gaps were filled with things I never consciously chose. I checked my phone dozens of times, rewatched repetitive content, said yes to meetings I didn't want, and handled other people's problems while my own work stayed untouched. Then I understood I didn't lack time. I lacked the ability to keep it from being wasted. From that point, I started a small but powerful habit. Each morning, before I begin work, I ask myself, if today were my last, am I using this time well? That one question clears out so much clutter from my schedule. I began prioritizing what truly matters, spending time with those I love, learning what inspires me, and embracing silence when I needed to recover. I no longer let others decide how I spend my time, because I've realized protecting time is protecting life itself. If you feel like you are constantly out of time, always rushing and breathless, try pausing, not to do more, but to reflect. Ask yourself, what is consuming my time without bringing real value? And from there, step by step, you will reclaim the most precious thing you own, the power to shape your life, beginning with every passing moment. 9. Surround yourself with those who lift you up. No one lives in isolation. Whether you are introverted and value solitude, or outgoing and socially active, the truth remains, the people around you quietly shape who you are. Your thoughts, your habits, your very way of living. Just as fertile soil helps a seed to grow, healthy, kind, and wise relationships help you evolve into the best version of yourself. And conversely, if you surround yourself with negativity, stagnation, complaints, and resignation, you'll eventually be pulled down without realizing it. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. And humans are affected by the energy of those they encounter daily, even if they barely speak to them. Seneca once advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. That's not a casual suggestion. It's a guiding principle for Stoic living, because we're not only nourished by food, but also by the words, attitudes, and mindsets of those closest to us. If you're constantly exposed to phrases like, things just keep getting worse, or that's just life, don't expect too much, or doing that won't change anything, then no matter how strong you think you are, seeds of doubt and resignation will begin to take root. But if you have a friend who listens deeply, who challenges you to step outside your comfort zone, who makes you reflect without feeling judged, that is an invaluable gift on the journey to living consciously. Choosing who you spend time with isn't arrogance, it's responsibility. You can love everyone, but that doesn't mean you must give your time to everyone. Some relationships are best cherished from a distance. Some people need clear boundaries, not because they're bad people, but because they no longer align with the path you're walking. And on the flip side, there are people you should seek out, even if you are not close yet, even if you feel nervous, simply because they represent something you want to cultivate in yourself. Calm, wisdom, quiet courage, gentle kindness. Observe, seek, and intentionally build your own Stoic circle. It doesn't need to be large, only real. I once believed I could grow alone, with books, meditation, journaling. But I was wrong. Some of the most pivotal moments in my life didn't come from great books, but from a friend's thoughtful question, a late-night conversation, a quiet piece of advice offered at the right time. There are people I've met only briefly, yet their way of living, their clarity of thought, left a mark on me deeper than formal lesson. And there are people I've had to walk away from, not because they were harmful, but because I needed space to grow without being pulled backward. Stoicism doesn't say you should isolate yourself or sever all connections. It says you should be as mindful as a gardener, pulling weeds, enriching the soil, watering the roots. We grow through dialogue, reflection, and mutual support. Choose companions who can speak truth when needed, but also know when silence is the wiser gift. Stay close to those who bring you peace, who inspire you, who motivate you to live with more integrity. These are the ones worth keeping. And if you haven't found them yet, be patient, because no one builds a resilient Stoic life alone. 10. Say no to what's unnecessary. One of the most vital forms of inner strength taught by Stoicism is the ability to distinguish between what is essential and what is excess, and to choose to live by core values rather than be pulled by others' desires. In a world full of noise, temptations, and seemingly irresistible invitations, the ability to say no becomes a survival skill, not just to protect your time, but to preserve your autonomy and steer your life with intention. Marcus Aurelius once advised, at every moment ask yourself, is this truly necessary? That's not just a philosophical prompt. It's a practical tool for filtering daily actions, choices, and reactions. Without this question, we easily drift toward things that feel urgent but lack importance. Get lost in meaningless conversation, social obligations performed out of politeness, or commitments made from pressure rather than purpose. And gradually, the most important things, self-growth, mental clarity, personal values, slip to the bottom of our priorities. The ability to say no isn't just about turning others down. It's about rejecting distraction, fragmentation, and the waste of time on things that don't serve your long-term path. It's the act of defending your personal boundaries from being invaded by expectations, old patterns, or unnecessary guilt. The Stoic doesn't aim to please everyone. They choose to live with virtue and clarity, because saying yes to everything is allowing your life to be governed by others' needs and assumptions. In reality, declining an ill-fitting invitation, a project with no meaning, or a conversation that adds no value requires courage and internal clarity. Many people say yes, not out of desire, but out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of disappointing someone, or simply fear of the short-term discomfort that comes with refusal. But the longer you postpone that discomfort, the easier it becomes to lose integrity and discipline. Stoicism reminds us, peace doesn't come from doing more. It comes from letting go of what doesn't belong. Practicing the art of refusal doesn't mean living harshly or cutting everyone off. On the contrary, it helps cultivate relationships that truly matter, where clarity, honesty, and mutual respect for boundaries come first. When someone learns to say no to what's unnecessary, they can say yes more fully to what truly matters. Quality time with loved ones, deep focus on meaningful work, or the peace that comes from knowing you're aligned with your path. This ability also elevates productivity and quality of life. When distractions are removed, the mind clears, and energy can be directed toward what truly holds value. The Stoic aims for a life of no waste, not just in possessions, but in time, attention, and presence. Eliminating the unnecessary isn't a loss. It's how you make space for what's truly worthy to emerge. Learning to say no is a journey. Few master it immediately. But each time you dare to turn down something meaningless, you reinforce your self-command. And with every such choice, you move closer to conscious living, where every action, every encounter, every word is grounded in intention, rather than driven by reflex or outside pressure. To me, Stoicism isn't something you read once and close the book. It's something to live with every day, from the smallest behaviors to the biggest decisions. In practice, I started by observing the moments when I was most often ruled by emotion, like getting angry in traffic, feeling disappointed when I fell short of expectations, or uneasy when seeing others succeed. Instead of reacting right away, I trained myself to take a deep breath, step back, and ask, is this within my control? A simple question that has changed the way I handle countless moments that once felt unbearable. I also realized that what matters isn't always being strong, but returning to reason quickly when I lose balance. There are days when I'm lazy, I procrastinate, I say things I shouldn't. But instead of beating myself up, I've learned to start again, like a person in training, refusing to let one slip derail the entire journey. Each morning, I write down one question. What value do I want to live by today? And that answer becomes the compass guiding me through the day. Through small, consistent, and conscious changes, I feel like I'm gradually living with more intention, less driven by emotion or the expectations of the world outside. It's not a destination. It's a way of being that continues day after day. Thank you for staying with me through the final moments of this journey. If what you've just heard feels like more than words, like a quiet reminder from within, then remember, everything you need to begin is already inside you. You don't need to become someone else. You only need the courage to become more fully yourself, clearer each day, more awake, and more grounded in will. Choose one Stoic habit that resonates with you and begin practicing it today. Don't wait for a perfect moment. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. This isn't just a video, it's an invitation to live differently. I'll see you in the next one.